In this episode, we're going to get into a special painting I came across, a Bison painting by a painter that I've been collecting from for a number of years. We're going to explore when America was just better and what made it better when it was better. And then I have to dig in on a question that's going around on the internet right now and has been for a week or two. What is a high value man? So we're going to explore that together. I'm going to share what I believe a high value man is. But before we do anything, we're starting these shows off with a show and tell. And so here we go. In one of the episodes, what was the episode? It was Fortune Favors Boldness. I told you guys about a few items I got from a shop. I was not able to get this piece at the time, but I persisted. And perseverance always pays off. Persistence always pays off. No, but I ended up persisting and I ended up getting it. This is a piece by the same artist, Cleveland. Fred Cleveland or Fred? I think it's Fred Cleveland. And he's, again, the same guy that does this painting here. So I've got four of his pieces. But this is awesome because it's kind of strange. It's obviously a painting of a bison on leather. You can't quite tell, but it's leather. And then he nailed it into the frame or the backdrop here. It's a kind of a similar color, but you can barely make out the details of the bison. In the right light, you can, but I think it's a really good selection of oil and color. Super cool piece. But I love that I got it from that old dude, Gilo, an old friend, guy in the trading post business. And I kind of had to persist because he didn't want to give it to me at first, but I was able to pull it off. So we got it. I got that painting.
How common or uncommon is leather as like a substrate for painting?
I've never seen anything quite like this. That's not to say it's not common, because I'm actually quite uncultured with art like this. I just kind of been taking a liking to getting some, collecting some. But I've never seen anything quite like this. I love it because it's kind of got the outer frame and then you got the gold frame. But it's just like a painting on a piece of leather, a square piece of leather. The colors are awesome. It's right down my alley. And of course, the bison. So, Southwest culture in all its glory. But that's that. And then I have this Boy Scout shirt. I got this in San Francisco on my honeymoon.
No way.
I did. We went across all along the 101. It was a beautiful honeymoon. In fact, we got married. We stayed one night here. Maybe it was 2 nights. We stayed 2 nights here at a resort in Albuquerque or just outside. And then we drove straight to San Francisco, and we stayed with Bree's aunt. She has a house out there in San Rafael, something like that. And stayed out there for a few days, and we did the 101 down the coast. It was beautiful. Took photos, tons of photos. Big Sur, all that stuff. We did Big Sur at sundown. And I'd always heard the phrase white knuckle driving, but I never experienced it. We tried to stay in Big Sur. So we were driving down the coast, sun's going down, took some beautiful photos at the perfect time, golden hour, right on the coast, right at all these beautiful spots. I should have had some pictures to show. But we go down and we find a place that has a little bit of vacancy. And he said it was like a lot for a room. And I think he knew. He's like, you have no choice. You got to have to do it. And we decided, I guess we'll just drive. We'll just go. Yeah, beautiful. Gosh, if you've ever been, it's the most beautiful place in America. One of. But he was like, yeah, we got a room, but it's like X amount of dollars. And says, if you guys want to make it, you better leave now because they closed the highway at 10. And so that meant we had to go fast to get down to Carmel, I believe was the next town.
Did you say they closed the highway at 10?
It probably wasn't Carmel, but yeah, they close it down because it gets foggy.
Oh,
and it's a dangerous drive because you're driving on the cliff's edge.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. And when you're driving south, you're on the outside. So you're on the side with, and some of the parts of the road don't have, like a crazy, you could drive off the edge of the cliff. And we're on our honeymoon. And so I was, and this was one of the first times, if not the first time where I had this like new, mindset come alive in me where I was like, I'm responsible for another human being now. So it was like the weight of this, like, I'm married. If like I go off the cliff, like it's on me that she's, and so, but I was like white knuckle driving all the way. And I remember like seriously my hands, by the time it was like an hour or 2 hours later, we got down to the next city. I forget what the city's called, a little town, a little beach town, beautiful town. But my hands were like kind of like stiff. And because I was so stressed driving, so is she. And it's not like it's crazy, but we're in our, if I drive a really small Toyota Yaris, still, it was her car at the time. And so it's not like a crazy nice car, and like, I don't know, it's not a safe feeling car. And anyways, so it just was like it was a dangerous type of drive. I'm being a little weak beta talking about it, but it was dark and it was starting to fog up. And not only that, when you get people behind you, the pressure that puts you like, I guess this guy wants to go really fast, and there's not really a lot of pull off. So anyway, guys, I know that's really weak of me, but I was really taking seriously the responsibility of my wife. Isn't that cute? Give me some credit. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even tell the story of the shirt. So we get it. We eventually make it to, that was before, but we made it to San Francisco and went to this vintage shop. I was recommended by a friend and I got in a lot of trouble. It's funny because I think in our Santa Fe vintage episode, forget which one that's called, I talked about how I got in trouble for buying a jacket. I got in trouble for buying a jacket. I bought this shirt and I bought a leather jacket and I don't regret it one bit. And I bet she doesn't really regret it either because I've definitely put that thing to use. And we have a memento of our honeymoon in San Francisco. Now, of course, that town's turned to, because everything woke turns to, and so it definitely has turned to that. But I had a love for that town. The history, the music, the hippie era. I don't know. I have a little bit of a tender spot in my heart for that.
And plus, you earned your road trip badge. And so you're
so
you had to stitch that on.
Yeah, you can't read it. You can't read it, but I finally earned my road trip badge from the white knuckle driving. And but yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, and one last thing. So this is going to be a new thing, but every episode we release, I'm hoping I can do this and keep this up. But I have a new piece out. So I this piece here, I don't know if you can really catch it, but it's an old fashioned type, like Fred Harvey type thing, but it's my rendition of a Thunderbird souvenir ring, and it's on an old signet. These are now available as of today, and we're doing something fun. I'm gonna not hide, but I'm gonna say a promo code throughout the episode. So if you stick around, watch the episode, you'll get 20% off within the first 24 hours of the show's launching. You get 20% off of really anything in the online shop. You'll get the code. It'll be available. But also this piece. And so these are made to order, made in the size that you need. And a nice little piece. I think it's a 6x8 Caraco Lake oval turquoise stone. Caraco Lake is a Nevada turquoise. And that's that. Okay. I wanted to start off by going back to when America was better. And that was probably in the 80s. But for me, I have a more, I like the 60s. So I found a couple things that I wanted to bring up. And this first one is when ads were better. You guys remember cigarettes?
You don't see many.
You guys remember those?
I'm probably the last generation that remembers indoor smoking.
Really? Yeah, you probably are.
Yeah,
I barely remember it.
I remember Village Inn smoking section.
Oh yeah, smoking or non-smoking?
No,
Both.
You don't see many wild stallions anymore.
I remember they used to ask you that.
And even
the host.
if he did run off 3 of your best mares, he's one of the last of a wild
Come on.
and very singular breed.
Come on, that's Americana right there. Say smoking cigarettes ups your testosterone,
Come to Marlboro,
but it also ups your cancer. So
Also helps your ADHD, apparently.
apparently. Did you guys ever smoke?
Us guys?
You guys, yeah, you, of course, and your other alter ego. I'm just kidding.
If you ask my parents, no.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, if you ask other people.
I smoked for a period of time. In fact, on a road trip, this is the road trip talk. This is the road trip episode. But on a road trip with my wife, right after we got, I believe it was right when we got married, right after. So shortly thereafter, I think we'd bought a pack of cigarettes. And on our way out, we used to do these things on Monday nights or Mondays. We would wake up in the morning, we'd just go drive in any direction. It's when I think when we came back here, it might have been before we moved, I don't know. Or before we were married. But we used to just drive in any direction and just kind of go find a new place. No GPS, no nothing. But on the way to one of those destinations, I think we were going towards Grants. We had bought a pack of cigarettes on our way out. And we were talking, and I said, "This is our last pack of cigarettes." And she's like, "Yeah, right." And sure enough, that was the last pack of cigarettes we ever bought. We stopped smoking. She was the bad influence in my life at that point. Or with that.
Now you just smoke them one off, you know.
Now I just smoke them one off. No. Yeah. I have had a few puffs. But no, we don't smoke. Well, cigars, right? The occasional cigar, but yeah, she didn't believe that we were going to stop smoking. And she got me to start smoking because she started smoking first. And I never smoked like crazy, but like a pack a day type of crazy. But I used to smoke a little bit. Never smoked weed. Never really smoked weed. I guess there was a couple occasions where I kind of tried to act cool or something. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, it was the Marlboro commercial. There's another great ad. What is the best car? That would be a good thing to put in the comments. Your favorite car, the best car design ever, any era. What is the most beautiful car? Comment in the comments section on YouTube. I don't know if you can comment on Apple or Spotify. Yeah, do it on YouTube. Comment your favorite car. This is the perfect car, so whatever you comment, if it's not this car, is the incorrect answer. Including whatever chorus is going to pull up. It's a very similar commercial. They really loved that imagery.
Ford Bronco, first four-wheel drive sports car, blazing a new trail of excitement. The new Ford Bronco for 1966. A rough, tough, go-anywhere, climb-anything sports car. Choice of
if you disagree with me, you need to repent. Because this is the most beautiful vehicle ever created.
With without annoying why.
If you disagree, you need to do it in a 5-star review and then comment your disagreement in the 5-star review.
There you go. That's the only way you'll get through to me.
Spring ride. Bronco Roadster, built
But man, isn't that thing good looking?
Bronco Sports Utility.
It is really nice.
Anything workhorse. Bronco wagon, family carry
For the streets, for the ranch.
Bronco, a new V8 Bronco at your Ford dealer.
Man, Ford, America's vehicle.
I grew up on German cars, and so for
VW.
me, the VW, man, that is just that's the pinnacle of 1980s car design.
Yeah, it isn't. I'm fine with 80s era cars. That there is a look and there is a good aesthetic to it.
It's the first sports hatch, man.
What was the CRX? Is that a car, right?
The CRX.
The Honda CRX. That's a pretty cool 80s
Let me pull it up.
car as well. Yeah, you're wrong, but I'll be a little light on you because, circumstances I won't bring up. But
That doesn't sound right. I don't know what you're getting at.
that's a pretty decent looking car too.
Yeah,
The hatchback.
I like hatch.
But the 80s, and it's a good era. I'm not going to argue it's not a good era. It's a different type of car. But then you look at like now, like modern car design.
Dude, they all look the same.
It's really
you
wrong.
Can't tell. If you look at the silhouette of a car now, you can't tell who made it and if it was made like in the last 4 years or now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a bummer.
It's because women are designing them, right?
It must be.
It must be. I'm sorry, ladies.
I think it's also cost cutting. I think it's like you get a silhouette that kind of works. You get a chassis that kind of works. And you're like, okay, we're going to milk this for the next 12 years, you know?
Yeah, but look at like a 2020, I don't know, standard car. Was like a RAV4 or something like that, like a Toyota. 2022 RAV4. See if you can find that. And it's just it's not nice. They're more intricate. That's what's crazy it's like somebody was given a access to create their own MySpace and they had endless possibilities and they had no level of restraint.
They use all the tools.
They used every font was a different color. There was no boundaries. It was just, that's not the worst looking car, but there's no
okay, but if you take off the badge, that could be like 4 manufacturers.
Yeah.
That doesn't have any sort of soul.
It looks like
to
a Subaru something, like an off-road race car. I saw one of those, I think, today or yesterday, and it's been a long day. But modern cars they're not on par.
They also
with cars.
feel like plastic.
That's right. And I wonder if that's because of, that's one thing, right? Is it that they're designed to kill less people? Because there was look at that. That's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's a car worth dying for.
I'm going to die for that car.
You get a fender bender and that's it. But you know what?
Yeah, exactly.
You look good going out, bro.
I mean, come on. We gotta, at some point, guys, we gotta decide to kill more people. Sorry, I gotta probably edit that, right? I don't know.
That got us kicked off something. I don't know what it was, but
sorry, that sounds terrible. YouTube, come on. No, at some point we gotta cut the costs here. I mean, we gotta sacrifice lives for vanity. It's just the right thing to do. And that is the right decision with these cars. But they were made with like metal, right? Wasn't the frame like, and all of the outside was just pure steel, whereas now it's just cheap plastic, fiberglass, whatever it is. So on a different note, another awesome thing is why America used to be better. Design was better. Car design was better. Men were better. Cigarettes, risky, hard work, rodeos, the Old West. Music was better. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Bob Dylan was better than most everything out right now. Pop music, controversial take. Come on, deal with it. But there was I used to love him. I used to listen to all of his interviews. Pioneer of my music, but I thought this was the greatest moment.
Album, the one with subterranean music blues in it.
Gosh, he's so triggered already.
the meaning of the photograph with you and the wearing a Triumph T-shirt?
What would you want to know about it?
Well, I'd like to know that that's an equivalent photograph. It means something. It's got a philosophy in it. And I'd like to know, I'd like to know visually what it represents to you, because you're a part of that.
So he's, pause it. For context, that guy, I don't know if he's done too many drugs or what, because 60s, of course, a lot of people were doing drugs. But he's asking on the cover of Highway 61 Revisited, I think it was that album. It was one of the album covers. He's wearing a shirt, I believe it was a Triumph motorcycle shirt. And this guy's just like so like in this fantasy land. He has this opportunity to ask his idol, Bob Dylan, a question. What did the Triumph shirt mean? What were you trying to portray with that shirt on the album cover? And Bob Dylan's like, nothing. I just was wearing a shirt. Let's keep watching.
I haven't really looked at it that much. I don't really.
I've thought about it a great deal.
It was just taken one day when I was sitting on the steps, you know. I don't really remember very too much about it.
Well, what
And
about
he's
the
smoking
motorcycle as
cigs.
an image in your songwriting? You seem to like that.
Oh, we all like motorcycles to some degree.
I do.
Ah,
Do you think of yourself
cringe.
primarily as a singer or as a poet?
No, I think of myself more as a
Should we
song
bring
and
back
dance
smoking?
man.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Song and dance man.
But I am also suggesting it. Should we start smoking again?
We're just posing the question.
Yeah, it's just a
We're just posing the question.
Listen, guys, I'm not asserting anything. No, I'm joking. But they are pretty cool. They're not healthy. Don't smoke, kids. But this makes you want to smoke a cigarette. This makes me want to smoke a cigarette. I'm not going to do it.
No,
Not on the
I don't
show.
foresee it, but it's more
This
like
is a family show.
ruthless type of feeling.
Is it though? That's probably good.
Very ruthless and
So what's cool about him is him and I, well, I'm not trying to like get in his sphere by no means, but he, shoot, I wonder if you could find a live version. I'm tired of getting these copyrights of, you're going to have to serve somebody. I think it's called something like that. Serve somebody. But he came to Jesus. I don't know if you knew this, but he had I don't know if it's sustained or if it was genuine or whatever, but he had a moment where I think through the Vineyard Church, he, gosh, who was it that it kind of brought him into the fold? But yeah, he had a seemingly genuine transformation back in the 80s or 70s. And he wrote a whole album. Everybody knows about it. If you don't, you're a square. Just kidding. Everybody hates his voice. I love it. This is another one of those things that if you don't like his voice, I hate to tell you, but you're just wrong. You just got this one wrong.
It's better than being boring. I hate no one more than Michael Bublé because he's perfect and boring.
He is perfect. He's AI.
He is. He's a Ken doll with a mic.
If you listen closely, you can hear the auto-tune in his recordings. I will admit I don't really love his voice in all eras. In fact, I think he was insecure about his voice for a long period of time.
And he still put out like 700 songs, so.
Which is rock and roll. It's like, hey, you don't like my voice? Well, I'm gonna put out 100 albums then. That's pretty awesome. So I found out, I think my mother-in-law has some vague connection with his people in his salvation sphere, or maybe even him, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, because my mother-in-law was heavy in the Vineyard movement early on in the Calvary, the whole thing. And so they had like, I don't know if it was firsthand experience, but it was really close, if not, of that whole situation. And don't hold me to this, Jody, But I believe she's also mentioned that Robert Kardashian was in that same sphere where he came to the Lord and he was affiliated with them and the vineyard. And you might have to fact check me on that. But I do remember that was the case, that I don't know anything about the Kardashians and I honestly don't really care. Not to like be above it or anything, but you know. But I do hear there was a clip of Ye a few months back on one of those controversial podcasts where he says, "I'm Robert now." He was kind of asserting like I'm the. What he was trying to say was because Robert was a godly leader.
He's like the patriarch. Is that what he's?
Yeah, he was like the godly patriarch, kind of taking the torch. And I actually thought it was kind of a powerful statement. But yeah,
this might be the perfect like circle back to the Ford Bronco.
Okay.
Because did you know Robert Kardashian represented OJ in the trial?
Oh, there you go.
So it's meant to be that all these topics are just meshing beautifully.
Whoa, it's just the sovereign will of God, guys.
It is.
We're witnessing it live.
And if you haven't watched The People versus O.J. Simpson, maybe I shouldn't name drop this show, but it's on Netflix. And they kind of document the whole story of O.J. They go through the whole iconic Ford Bronco slowest chase in the world. And Ross plays Robert Kardashian.
Couldn't come close.
Never came close.
Was it good?
It was pretty good. I'm a nerd with that kind of stuff, with like any sort of true crime reenactment. Yeah. So it was really fun. And there's a couple cameos where like there's obviously actresses that are the Kardashian kids and like the sort of animosity that was happening at like the funeral and stuff.
What happened to him? How did he pass?
He had some sort of medical issue, I think.
Okay.
Where he passed away. But yeah.
Could you imagine what America would look like if he didn't?
Oh, like if he was more present?
Yeah, as a godly man.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah,
that's an interesting perspective.
You know, then you can maybe make the argument that the Kardashians wouldn't be the Kardashians. But they were, because I mean they were an iconic family then because of him representing OJ.
Yeah, but now they're household name. I mean, that's like a whole other level.
But not necessarily for the right reasons, right?
No, that's true. That's true.
If he would have stayed, would they have gone off into this vanity world and made a show? I wonder if the trajectory of the entire family would have been different.
Well, do you know?
And even Bruce or Caitlyn Jenner or whatever. Like what would have happened there?
Bruce is a dude still?
What if, right? An alternate universe. If anyone is in that universe can tap into that and tell us what happens in that world, I'd love to hear that. That'd be wild. Quantum physics. We're going to shift crazy, but before we do, the code is for 20% off the first 24 hours is Bison 20, Bison 20. You get 20% off the entire website. And if it's over $100, you could type in also the code America and you get free shipping. So there you go. That's the secret code. That's the first time.
Didn't you say the first person who purchases, you're going to handwrite them a letter? Isn't that what you were
I'm going to handwrite you a letter. And gosh, yeah, I will.
Now it's on the show, so now it's promised.
The first purchase with that code gets a handwritten, can't say love note because I'm happily married to my wife. But how can I make it special? I'll throw in an extra piece of jewelry in there for you.
Whoa, that's above and beyond. That's like another level.
I will. I'll throw in a pin, a turquoise pin. All right?
Very nice.
Don't push it. That's it.
Be grateful.
Be grateful. So we're going to shift gears here. That was all the light stuff. It's going to get a little bit more heavy. Not in a negative way, hopefully. This could be fun. But there's been a debate brewing online on the internet.com. And I never knew about this guy. His name's Rollo Tomassi. Hate to give him any more glory than he deserves because he's kind of a little douche. But he wrote a tweet a few weeks ago. I want to say early May. I guess it was a couple weeks ago. Can you pull up the tweet? Rollo Tomassi. So this guy is in the red pill community, and I guess that just means he's in the manosphere. It's another way of talking about it, or the male feminists. So they're people that kind of take it a little too far. It's imbalanced, but toward men. And it, like kind of weird. Like they kind of almost, if they don't advocate cheating, they're like fine with it. That men can cheat, women can't cheat. It's like the red pill community is kind of like Andrew Tate world, but it's not necessarily faith-based by any means. And actually, this is the catalyst that's kind of separating these red pill people from other people who are kind of being bold in what's right, in traditional values, traditional gender roles, or whatever it is. But these guys take it pretty severe. But he wrote this tweet where he says, "The quickest path to becoming a high-value man: do not get married. Avoid family creation. Get a vasectomy in your 20s. Lift consistently. Eliminate all sedations. Learn game and networking. Play to your strengths. Build wealth. And then finally, resist easing up on your focus." So every single one of those is very self-focused, very selfish. But the one that got a lot of heat, obviously, which was combined in the first three, which would be very vibrantly opposed by traditional faith-based Christians, which is the do not get married, avoid family creation, and then, of course, most controversial, vasectomy in your 20s. What is that? And he tries to make a case. Well, I wasn't trying to make this advice. Okay, dude. And he was also trying to say, oh, this isn't for everybody. This is for a very specific set of people. Regardless, it's really, really funny advice. But yeah, he calls himself like the godfather of the red pill. Oh. And they've appropriated red pill because obviously, for those that don't know, red pill originally meant it was an allegory derived from the movie The Matrix, where you took the red pill, you went down the rabbit hole, you find out the truth and how the world actually is, and then the other pill was the blue pill, where you wake up, ignorance is bliss, and you forget it all. And so they're taking, the red pill. They're appropriating the proper red pill. I like the red pill analogy, but they're improper. We're taking it back. I don't allow them. I'm not giving them the red pill thing. So he got a lot of crap for that tweet, specifically the vasectomy thing. And then also people started saying, well, what is a high value man? What does he mean by a high value man? The quickest way to become a high value man. And it just totally destroyed his entire brand, because he didn't even know what a high value man was. He didn't know how to define it. And so he was defining it based off of all these different subjective things, like how many women you can have sex with, how much money you can make. All of these really selfish and vain, worldly, empty things. And he, I believe, sticks by all those things. And so there's becoming this divorce from some of those people in that community from other traditional Christians, whatever. And so I thought I wanted to give my perspective on what a high value man is in contrast to. And here it is. So these are things that I found along my journey of becoming that. To start it off, when I was like 18, 19, I was living a useless life. I was depressed. I had nothing going for me. I was essentially a high school dropout. A girl had just broken up with me, and I had no future. I had no plans. I was playing video games all day, every day, into the night. And so I got to a point of emptiness, of realizing, if I don't change things, things aren't going to change. And so that's when I began to really pursue, okay, what do I need to do here? What I need to change things. And so the first thing I had to come to understand was, in relation to, say, this argument, there's no objective high value. Value has to be sourced by something. It has to be hinged on something. And to them, it's just all subjective. Some of them were saying, oh, it's based on what women desire in men. It's based on financial value. If you make $10,000 a month, $120,000. And then they were like, well, it's hard because it's New York, it's Kansas. And if you're in Kansas, $120,000 is a lot of money. So it's entirely subjective. They had no anchor for the rationale. And so, in my perspective, in God is objective standard of value, is the objective standard of value. He defines it. And how do we get to know God? To know the objective standard of value? Through Jesus. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Through this book right here. And so, but to do that, you have to be humble. You have to not know all the answers at some point. And so these are them. These are mine. 1, be humble. A humble man is a high value man. It's the beginning of a high value man, I'll say. And that was the case for me. When I became a Christian, I started in the New Testament. I started in Matthew, started reading the Bible. Right around that time when I was in empty, in a bad place. I said, I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to go into my backyard, and I would take a cigar and take a cup of coffee. I had my Bible, and I had my journal. And I'd sit there and I'd start by, and I recommend this to anybody, because it was the perfect thing. But I would sit there and I'd pray. I was in the middle of spring. It was beautiful outside. And I'd pray. And I would say, Lord, if you're there, because I didn't know if I believed anything at the time, show me. And I opened up my Bible and I started in Matthew. And eventually I got to Matthew 6:33. And in Matthew 6:33, he says this. Jesus, red letter Bible right here. This is 32. I'll start in 32. It says, for the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Clothes, food. That's what it says just before that. In 33, it says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble in its own. But I stuck onto that one. That was one of the first ones that really was it. That was an anchor, an early anchor. Seek first the kingdom, and all things shall be added unto you. But to do that means you got to submit. You got to submit to something, which is the Lord. Seek first. What does it mean to seek the king? What is the kingdom? Jesus is Lord. He is king. He's the King of kings, the Lord of lords. You submit to the King of kings, you're a part of his kingdom. A king has a kingdom, and his kingdom is that, to become a Christian, to come to the end of yourself. And so that was the point of no return for me. I became a Christian. So I would say that, but it requires humility, because you have to come to the end of your way. And Jesus is I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That was it right there. So 1 is be humble. 2, you got to be wise to be a high value man. You got to seek wisdom. So what is wisdom? Wisdom isn't knowledge. It's not vain. It's defined like this. Wisdom is the ability to discern what is true, right, or lasting. It is not simply intelligence. Knowledge is understanding. Knowledge or understanding. Gosh, I'm retarded. I'm unwise. It is not simply intelligence, knowledge, or understanding, but the ability to use these to think and act in such a way that common sense prevails and choices are beneficial and productive. And so in the Bible, that was one of the beginning things too. It says in the Proverbs. Let's see, was it Proverbs 1:7? It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. James 1:5 is another good reference for this. So I feel like when these guys were talking about it, they left out all the important stuff. And of course they're not Christians, so I don't necessarily expect them to, see these things or believe these things. But James 1:5. I didn't bookmark this one. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. So to be a high value man, you got to be wise. And really the great utility in wisdom is this, Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing in God, or to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And I think that's probably the ticket right there is, I think so many people have such a hard time navigating the world. Oh my gosh, I went through a whole saga of my life just trying to gain wisdom. And I was just trying to understand, what is God's will? What is God's will for my life? And this scripture right there brought me so much comfort. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing, perfect will, by the renewal of your mind. But it's a separation of values. Jesus says it in the Beatitudes or in the Sermon on the Mount, I believe, where he says, "What would you have gained if you gained the world but forfeited your soul?" Now I know this is obviously the Christian perspective, so I don't expect them to know these things, and so these red pill guys are basing all of their thoughts off of subjective values. In fact, they dismiss all moral values in the pursuit of, I guess, high value. I don't know, but that's it. You can't base it off money. Now, it's not to say that money isn't a measure of value, of, say, wealth. It is. But you can be a rotten person and have a lot of money. And so it's not necessarily an active or an accurate reasoning. And yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So maybe pulling a little less of the biblical mindset here and more social, political. Do you see value in this group of guys or this particular movement in the idea of the Overton window? They are probably overcorrecting from a societal norm that is overtaken, like feminism and extremist feminism. And do you see them as pulling the conversation back to center in any way? Do you value the utility in that, or do you feel like there's damage being done that's irreparable?
I think the reason, I think a lot of people accepted these people in their perspective for a while, in the pragmatic view. I think they have accepted it all until this moment. I think this is the pivotal moment because, yes, up until this point where they start advocating against the family and for effectively sterilizing young men. Now, can you reverse a vasectomy? Okay. Yeah, but it's like a 30% shot. And so when they started advocating for that, that's when people are like, I'm out, dude. Bye. Now, even still, excuse me, they were advocating for like sexual promiscuity, technically speaking. So it would not necessarily have ever been aligned with the biblical values or whatever. But can you expect, or can you appreciate, I think kind of your question was, can you appreciate for the Overton window, or at least the needle being brought over to the middle more? Yeah, I think so. But on these certain non-compromising ones, for me, this is where I get out.
I think that makes sense. Like, this is the point where it kind of comes to a head, because most of the people that are in the circles that I am in would say the only reason to fight for that balance in society or in the home is so that we have a healthy, upright view and structure for the family and for society. And if we're going to skew that into promiscuity or all of these other weird sorts of views, then we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater at that point.
Yeah. And I think it's just important to discern and say, hey, yep, if you guys are anti-feminists, which would be, the extremists, like men should be subservient, less than, or we should punish men to elevate women, that type of thing in the workforce or whatever. Then, it's like, no, I'm out, obviously, with the feminism. And so when they combat that, they're like, oh yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you can accept that to a degree. But then when they start spouting like really bad stuff, like getting a vasectomy in your 20s, I'm out, dude.
It's good.
But yeah, I think you can ride that train until it hits its
till last
arrival.
Week.
Exactly. That's not to justify, that they've said things that are inexcusable, are just not right. But socially, yeah, I would ride the train for a little bit for the correction. Never obviously compromising principles. All right, so we got wisdom, we got humility. A humble man is a high value man. A wise man is a high value man. A strong man, and I'm not going to dismiss physical strength because I think that is important, but I think that's where they'll highlight, and they won't necessarily continue in the inner strength of, like, say, self-control. In fact, they don't even, that's not even a part of their vocabulary. From what I've seen, men should be able to, like, they say things like this. They say things like, it's kind of like what Dennis Prager said. He's like, men want variety. And they justify and say, oh yeah, men should be able to essentially have the ability to sleep around and do this or that and have multiple wives, some of these guys think. And without consequence, and have as many kids as possible with as many women as possible. Some of them believe that. I don't know, I want to say that all of them do. But obviously that's despicable. The kids need a father in their life. But to define what I mean by strength, I think we are called to be strong in the Lord. To have self-control. To be able to withstand and endure. I think strength brings about character. So Romans 5:3 kind of talks about this. And I always remembered this. This is one that stuck with me since I worked at Starbucks for whatever reason. I think it's because an atheist guy brought it to my attention before I'd ever read through this part. But he said, this is Paul, 5:3, Romans 5:3. Not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. And character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because God has poured out his love in our hearts by the Holy Spirit whom he's given us. And so that whole pattern is kind of repeated a few times throughout different letters. I think it's in James. I think Peter also says something very similar. But this pattern of suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance brings about endurance or strength. And then strength brings about hope. But strength, what is strength? Are you able to endure hardship? Are you able to weather the storm of hardship? We all kind of went through some hardships in the last few years. Undoubtedly, everybody has. How did you weather it? Did you curse God? Did you curse your neighbor? Did it change your heart? That's what I would say, is if you can withstand what life puts at you, a death in the family, severe hardships like, say, Job, what happens to Job, and come out of it on the other end the same man or a better man, that's strength. Because that's the call, right? Rejoice in your sufferings because it begets character. That's strength. And that's self-control ultimately. You'll be able to withstand temptation. Are you able to say no to corn? By corn, I mean the other one. To sloth? Are you able to say no to a certain deal because it disobeys your conscience? Business deal? Money? Greed? I think that's strength. And I think that kind of informs eventually courage, which would be my number 4. In Joshua 1:9 is one of my favorite scriptures. Be strong and of great courage. And Timothy 1:7 was another one. We have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I always think of those because courage isn't courage, they say, unless you have to overcome. Courage is doing the right thing in the face of danger or great personal cost. But to be courageous, you have to be strong. But to be courageous, you have to have wisdom. You have to be able to test and approve what would be right. And it's not always right according to the worldly sense of things. And so it sounds upside down to a lot of people. A lot of people will not ever understand why, though they say the Pharisees didn't understand when Jesus was up on the cross, they said, bring yourself down. You could save all these other people, you can't save yourself. They can never understand that he was paying the ultimate price. And that required, gosh, if you've ever seen The Passion and you see him now this is obviously not the truth of the situation, but I think it's an interesting representation of the Garden of Gethsemane moment where he's tormented to the point of sweating blood and to the point of saying, Father, may this cup pass from me. Does this have to happen, Lord? And essentially, the answer is yes, it has to happen. And he says, not my will, but yours. That's courage. That's the ultimate allegory or illustration of courage. Okay, so to repeat real quick, we got be humble, be wise, be strong, be courageous, be loving and tender. I think a lot of people have a hard time with this one. A lot of men, mainly men. I have 2 good examples of this in my life, and I think this is why I've never had an issue with like crying in public. I've cried multiple podcasts already. But I had really strong uncles that one of them was a pastor, a vineyard pastor. He's a very strong man. He was an entrepreneur. He owned his own businesses. He had a lot of kids. He worked really hard with his hands. And was bold. He was a bold man, exemplified a lot of courage. But when he'd preach a sermon sometimes, he would bust out into tears. He was on, I wonder if you could find it. This would be awesome. Extreme Home Makeover. This is a good example. You'll get to kind of visualize this with me. Extreme Home Makeover, Albuquerque, Gerald Martinez. Gerald Martinez was my uncle. Not a perfect man, but he was a redeemed man. And I think that says it all. But if you could pull it up on YouTube, there was a clip of him on the Extreme Home Makeover. And his story there was, because they had a few houses renovated in the worst part of town. He moved his whole family to the worst part of New Mexico, really.
People know more about New Mexico this morning. The state was featured on the season premiere of ABC's Extreme Makeover Home Edition. The Martinez family runs a mission in southeast Albuquerque, and the show came to transform their lives, their home, and their neighborhood. Action
I don't know if he
reporter
cries in
AJ
this, but he
Smith was with the Martinez family for the show and the special events afterwards, including an inside look at their new home. It was the night a whole community was waiting for when New Mexico, Albuquerque, and the Martinez family would take the national spotlight.
That's a throwback.
Dozens of people showed up at Joshua's Vineyard, the church where Gerald Martinez is a pastor, to watch ABC's Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Different world. There's Bethany.
The premiere was all about getting the Martinez family
there he is.
a new home. After the show, the group rode or walked around the block to see the house in person. Dozens of people formed a human chain around the property to dedicate it back to God.
That was a different era.
Then the Martinez family welcomed in our cameras to tour the house. We saw the kids' rooms, each one made to match their favorite sports, places,
Levi,
or instruments.
I'll have him on at some point. He's my cousin.
And we even saw the very special spot where Pastor Martinez counts his blessings.
Every morning when I wake up, and this is the truth, I'm in my bed, and normally about 4:30, my eyes open up, and that's the first thing I see.
Your family?
My family. And I'm laying in my bed, and I look up, and her face mesmerizes me. I'm not kidding you. When I see it, I just, she to me, she's the most beautiful lady on the planet. And then I look at my kids. I mean, Allie loves God, and she's stunning. I mean, there's life in her face. And then this little one here, she just steals your heart. I mean, Bethany literally steals your heart. Mm-hmm. And Levi, he's just a monster. I mean, he loves life.
In the best
so full
way.
Of energy, and he loves life. And then this little one down here, she's going to change the world. I promise you. She is going to change the world because she is ruthless.
So this is a great way to wake up in the morning.
I wake up in the morning and I see my family and I say a prayer.
And he prays that the new home will help his mission to transform the Trumbull Village neighborhood. In southeast Albuquerque, AJ Smith, Action.
He was a radical man.
This morning. Oh, such a great thing, and I don't know if
cool
you
guy.
had a chance to watch the show or not.
Yeah, you didn't get to see him cry or anything, but he was tender. He was a tender guy. He loved you. He hugged and he would kiss the homeless people that he knew that would come across the neighborhood. He knew them by name. And I thought that was just a good illustration. Jesus wept at Lazarus. That was another good point. What is an alpha man? I think Jesus is the alpha right there. And if that alpha can cry, then real men can cry. That's not to say you be weak or anything. You obviously have some self-control, but there's something to be said about being tender, being able to feel. I think you can get to a place in life where you're just so stale and you're just going through the motions and nothing's real. I know a lot of you can relate to that, but it's important to live. And I think that's what it means to be tender. And sometimes that's not fun and it's not easy. Somebody was saying it, I heard it recently, where it's like we see all these videos of violent acts and everything on social media, that it's almost impossible to care, understandably so. And I'm not, I don't think that we don't have the capacity to care about every little individual thing, but I think it can cause us to be really calloused. And something that actually guards my thinking in this is in Matthew 24, when Jesus talks about the signs of the end of the age. And he says, the hearts of many will grow cold. And I think about that sometimes when I feel like, oh, shoot, my heart's cold right now. Like I don't care about this person or that or whatever. You drive by the situation and there's a dude laying on the floor on concrete or at a bus stop and he's like maybe dead. And you see that daily here. Sometimes you could just be super callous. I could be callous and just think, oh my gosh. But then you just kind of make yourself think, you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's probably dying. He's at the end of his road. I'm not saying we need to be endlessly empathetic. You got to control it, and limit it to a degree, but you can't cut yourself off. So that's all I mean by being tender. Okay. Number 6, acquire skills. Be a high value man. Got to have skills. This is where I think you can get into subjectivity or like relativity, because different skills are more valuable relative to the market, right? Like coding or like making airplanes in the 1800s would have been like crazy valuable, and they still are valuable today, but you know what I'm saying. It can be relative, but having specific skills, you got to have skills, which means you have to get out there and be an apprentice, be a student, which again requires humility, which requires effort, which eventually follows into, and this is kind of the sister of it, is work. The idea that you want to have skills so that you can work hard, so that you can provide for yourself and your family. You don't work, you don't eat. So that's true. The reason I depart from those guys is they're like, yeah, you got to make 6 figures. You got to make 7 figures, 8 figures. You got to be a billionaire. And if you're a billionaire, then yeah, you're a high value man. Because the point is like, yes, look, I'm not discounting. Yes, money, make money, be good at money, for sure. I want to be good at money. I want to, be a good provider. But insofar as you're being a good provider, to just make money, store your treasures in heaven. Truthfully, store your treasures in your character. Invest in your family. Invest in the loved ones you have around you, your friends. And yes, invest in your skills so that you can provide for your family. But to just make money and then neglect your family, like these guys would probably, I'm assuming, would neglect their family. And then I guess there's one more after this. But have a big family. I think that's my dream. I want to have 25 kids. I'm just kidding. Brie, I'm just kidding. She says, you're kind of kidding. Of course I can't have 25 kids. That's impossible. But I do want to have as many kids as I can. For that ideal of having, being on my deathbed and having a bunch of my grandkids around me. Who doesn't want that? But it's not just that. It's like, I think a high value man does this. He goes out, he becomes the best man he can be. And the only way to do that is become a Christian. You have to be a Christian. I'm sorry. You don't have to be, but to be a high value man, in my opinion, controversial, whatever, you have to be a Christian. Submit yourself to the Lordship of Jesus Christ and get wisdom, get courage, persevere, get strength, get character, and then impart those things to your kids. And then lastly, got to be fun. It's funny. I was talking to somebody today. I was buying turquoise. And he was like, I'm going to sound like a Christian because I'm so lame. He said something like that. Like I was like, oh man, that's so sad. But he was like, yeah, he was just relating Christianity or Christians to being super lame. And I was like, dang, that sucks. It's like, I'm a Christian. I hope I'm kind of fun sometimes. I don't know. But got to have fun. And that leads me into this. Final video. I was watching this thing with my, Bree sent this to me and I cried. Because, and it's not like a sad thing, it's a really happy thing. But this kid, Romeo, you've probably seen his videos by now because they're extremely viral. But he sings this song. The kid is just a superstar. And I just watched him. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the dream. Do you have it? Let's see.
My stupid heart, don't know. I tried to let you go so many times before. Then wound up at your door, my stupid heart. Too late, already on my way. If we go down in flames again, then you can blame my stupid heart. Okay, okay. You can blame my stupid heart. I've tried to let you go so many times before. You can blame my stupid heart. Already on my way. If we go down in flames again, then you can blame my stupid heart. Too late, already on my way. If we go down in flames again, then you could blame my stupid heart.
Good. Yeah. How'd you feel?
I couldn't figure out why that made me so emotional. Like, Bree's like, why are you crying? I was like, I don't know. And I still don't really fully know. I think it was like, you know, when you get struck with something that's just like so beautiful. And to me, that was like really beautiful. See like a little boy singing, you know, his heart out with his parents there, you know, his brothers. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty cool legacy. No, I was telling Brie, I was like, I love this kid. I don't know what it is. And I like, call me lame, but I was in the back. I was like, in the middle of a work day, and I was like praying for this kid. I was like, oh Lord, preserve this kid. Gosh, this is a really Christian show, isn't it? Sorry, I'm not sorry. But I was. Romeo, I love you, dude. I love your family. I'm praying for your family. So I'm going to buy my kid a guitar. Arlo and Scout will turn. They're like, Dad, play My Stupid Heart, because that song's called My Stupid Heart. And they'll sing that song and they'll do the whole head bob thing. But yeah, anyways, that's all I have. I love you guys. Goodbye.